Hi, everybody. I'm Kathy McClelland with Neighbors for a Better San Diego. Neighbors for a Better San Diego is an all-volunteer, grassroots, nonprofit organization whose main goal is to bring the public back into the discussion on urban planning and growth in San Diego. We want you to have a say in your future. One of our main efforts is public awareness. We want to enhance your understanding of the main issues that are going on in San Diego right now. So it is our great pleasure to be able to host this candidates forum tonight. And we want to thank the candidates who accepted our invitation and who appeared today. We want to thank you, the audience, who came out during your dinner hour to join us. And we really want to thank the amazing League of Women Voters who have inspired us, mentored us, and collaborated with us on this event. So I'd like to turn this over to our League of Women Voters moderator for tonight, Gail Mackler.
Thank you, Kathy. Well, thank you to the Neighbors for a Better San Diego for hosting the Candidate Forum. As she said, my name is Gail Mackler, and I'm from the League of Women Voters, and I will be your moderator for the evening. This is the forum, in case you don't know, for the Mayor of San Diego. Thank you for coming and being an informed voter. In case you didn't realize, the League was formed in 1920 before women got a chance to vote. So the League has been around for a very long time. And for a long time, they were also the people who led the presidential debates. You may remember that. We want to introduce to you the candidates this evening, and we want to thank them for coming. They were all invited. All 5 were invited, but only 4 are participating this evening. And they are, let me get everyone's name right, Larry Turner, that's right. Genevieve, right? Dan Smiechowski, and Jane Glasson. Did I get everybody's name right? I'm sorry. And they've all agreed to let me call them by their first name, so I don't have to continue stumbling through this for the rest of the evening. Okay. The League is very proud to be nonpartisan, neither supporting nor opposing candidates or political parties, but always working on vital issues of concern to the public and to the community. Again, thank you all for coming and being informed voters. Now, I have to do some more housekeeping. We are using the League of Women Voters format for the candidate forum. As part of our mission to educate voters, the League moderates candidate forums using a format that is fair and informative, and the candidates have all agreed to this format in advance. This is an educational format. It is a format with the voters getting informed and the candidates are not debating with one another. A timekeeper, Janelle, where are you, Janelle? There she is. She will be raising paddles to indicate when the time is 2 minutes or 1 minute and the time is up, to inform them. You are aware that the paddles are right there on the first row. Okay, very good. The candidates will have 2 minutes for their opening statement, 2 minutes for their closing statement, and 1 minute to respond to each question from the audience. The most important part of the forum is hearing from you and the questions that you may have for the candidates. There will be no verbal questions from the audience. Our 2 lead pages, Ann, Noel, and Kathy Rich, are passing out index cards and pencils. They will be collecting your written questions and giving them to our question screeners. Please note, most importantly, word your questions in a general way so that the candidates can respond to them. Please remember to use civility and respect in wording your questions, and keep your questions succinct. Commentary, unfortunately, prefacing a question will not be read. Questions directed specifically to one candidate will be held until there are specific questions for each of them. The question screeners, folks right here at this bench, Vicki Riggs and Denise Vetter from the League, and Paul Kruger from Neighbors for a Better San Diego. They are going to be going through, it's a tough job. They're going to be going through the questions, putting them in categories and topics of general interest. Okay. Please hold all your applause until the forum is completely finished to ensure that all the candidates have equal time and to help us keep things moving along. Since the candidate forum is designed to provide a nonpartisan setting for undecided voters to hear all positions, any demonstrations of support or opposition, such as clapping or booing, so that the candidates will be considered out of order, and unfortunately that could result in us canceling the rest of the forum. Okay, here we go. Now for opening statements. We will begin with Larry. 2 minutes.
Okay.
Thank
you
you
all for being here. It began? All right. Thank you all for being here. I know you got some great things you could be doing on a weeknight. It was good weather today. Appreciate you all being out here. I appreciate seeing San Diegans that care about the future of the city. It's motivating. It's great to see the folks that have the great questions for us. I love coming around to all the different neighborhoods and hearing the things that are occurring in your neighborhood and the type of direction you'd like it to go in. So I look forward to your questions. But a little bit about me real quick. I was a Marine for 23 years, retired from the Marine Corps. Learned a lot of leadership experience there, ran some large organizations, big budgets, in times of crisis and in times of peace, and doing humanitarian operations and that sort of thing. I came back to San Diego when I retired and been here for about 8 years working for the police department. Everyone thinks I'm retired. I am still an active police officer working. I was working today. So I am out there on the streets. I get a chance to see everything that happens in the city from the street level all the way, as I say, inside the tents and all the way up to the politicians. One thing about me is I am not a politician. I never wanted to be running for office. Never did it before. And, this is not something I want to see as a career for me. I want to do this just to help my community, and then I want to be done. I'm not trying to do any other office. I promise you that. My plans were very different than this. But seeing the city and the state it's in, seeing the decay of the city, and not really seeing a change of direction with that is really bothering me. I've got 2 little kids, and I really wanted to see them be able to be raised here in San Diego. And for me, it's just not safe enough for that, and it's a lot of friends are leaving the state, leaving the area, going to other cities, and I don't want to leave. This is where I live. This is my home. I'm a San Diegan, and I want to raise my kids here. So for me, it's all about safety and about infrastructure. Those are the 2 things that our local government, we should all agree on. It's not a right thing. It's not a left thing. It's just that 95% of stuff we all should be agreeing on. So here I am trying to do that, and my time's up, but thank you for being here.
Genevieve, your opening statement, 2 minutes.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Genevieve Jones-Wright. I am an adjunct professor, an attorney, and a nonprofit executive. I am also the mother of a 14-month-old little girl by the name of Olive, and I am the daughter of a retired custodial worker who worked for 25 years at UCSD Hospital before retiring in 2019. All of this brings me to my vision and my plan for San Diego. I am a native San Diegan and a lifelong San Diegan resident. I am very concerned about the direction our city is going in. We are being priced out of San Diego. Families are being split in San Diego, where our young people go away to college but cannot afford to live in the place they grew up. Grandparents are having to get on planes to visit their grandchildren. And it has all happened under this current administration, where we are now the most expensive city in the entire nation. On top of that, seniors and people like my mother who are on fixed income are having to decide whether they will pay their gas and electric bill, which is a very big challenge because we also pay the highest utility rate in all of the country, or whether they can pay for other basic necessities. The mayor has a hand in all of those things. I am running because opportunities for every single San Diegan to thrive must be created. My time is nearing, so I will say I look forward to speaking with you all tonight about my 3 pathways to create those opportunities where every single San Diegan can thrive, whether you are a young professional or one of our seniors. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Dan?
This campaign is not about one man. It is about everyone. Before I begin, I would like to thank the San Diego Police Department, including Mr. Turner, San Diego Fire and Rescue, and my fellow lifeguards. Now, I've spent almost my entire life in this city, from Rancho Bernardo, Carmel Valley, La Jolla, to Encanto, San Ysidro, every community. Our campaign, we know every community in this city. My primary responsibility to all of you is public safety, number 1. Number 2, the homeless issue, the budget, housing, can all be found on our website, DannyTry.com. Try for triathlon. I'm an Ironman triathlon. Take a look at our website, DannyTry.com. Residential neighborhoods will remain residential under our administration. Now, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Jane?
I am Jane Louise Glasson. I have lived in San Diego County all my life. I graduated with distinction in the major at San Diego State University. I graduated Phi Theta Kappa and Alpha Gamma Sigma at Palomar College. I graduated with an associate degree in foreign languages. I studied Spanish, French, and German at Miracosta College. I also studied American Sign Language for a semester. I have been a treasurer and, no, I'm sorry. I volunteered as a treasurer and a secretary for my HOA where I live. I have a condo. I have been a homeowner and a resident in the city of San Diego since 1998 in Mira Mesa. For about 20 years, I have worked for a school district. I currently work at a high school. I have not accepted any campaign contributions. I don't want taxes to be raised. I oppose SB 10. I appreciate Prop 13 and what Howard Jarvis did for us. I really like to keep costs low if possible, and I want to support homeowners and renters and mom and pop apartment owners. I also want to make sure that we have enough police to protect us and our assets, and I want to support businesses. I don't believe in that proposition that allows people to steal up to $950 a day and get away with it, you know, not be a felon. It just doesn't make sense because people don't understand when they don't see boundaries, so they think that stealing is okay. We have to make it a better San Diego. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the first question, you'll have a minute to answer, each of you. It goes to Genevieve. The city faces a $100 million budget deficit in the coming year. Where would you make the necessary cuts to balance the budget?
As the mayor, I would have access to the financial landscape and the inventory and be able to really assess where we need to make cuts. So at this moment, I would say the priority has to be figuring out what non-critical projects we have where we can reduce spending and where the non-critical projects can be delayed. I think in addition to making cuts, we have to figure out how we're going to raise revenue without burdening San Diegans. And a big issue is the city not collecting all of the fees and revenue that is due to the city. And we have to take a look at all of those things. Understanding that when we are asking to reduce spending and delay non-critical projects, it cannot interfere with the basic services that the city must provide for San Diegans.
Thank you. Dan, where would you make cuts?
30% of the budget is the pension plan. We are going to put new hires on Social Security, like the rest of us. We are going to cut the salaries of those earning more than $150,000 a year by 10%. We are going to cut city departments. It's time for austerity in this city. And all of us are responsible, every one of us. Thank you.
Jane?
I would want to speak with everyone involved, like city council members, and look at the budget and see what can be cut without hurting San Diego. When I was on my board, when I was on the board of my HOA, we always looked carefully at what we could spend and in what categories. How much was allotted for a month, how much was allotted for the year. And I really would want to look carefully over the figures and listen to everyone I'm allowed to listen to. Everyone I should be talking, I mean, I want to listen to the city council members and anyone else the city wants me to listen to. I want to do a good analysis. It's best if I have the figures in front of me, and it's best if I talk with everyone that the city advises I talk with for them. You know, I want to make the best decisions possible. There's no way I can just say, let's cut this, let's cut this. No.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Larry?
Thanks. I think it would be really difficult right now to say exactly what we would cut, because that would be determined on the fact that we're getting the true numbers right now from our city. And some of the things that I've had access to with the budget, I've seen a lot of mismanagement with our spending. I could tell you many things, like for example, you know, the hotels we're purchasing for the homeless, and I want to get the homeless off the street as well, but $600,000 or $800,000 spending on a Motel 6 room, you know, we can do better than that for $600,000 or $800,000. Spending $4,500 a month per homeless person at a parking lot in a tent. You know, there's a lot of wasteful spending that's going on in the city. And on day one, I'm going to have an audit. I'm going to bring in an army of accountants, and we're going to go through the books and see where we have been wasting money for so long. So I feel that we do have an opportunity to maybe do this without the austere cuts, but I just don't know right now. I don't feel that we've got an honest picture of where the money is going. I think it's going to a lot of waste out there, and we're going to fix that.
Thank you. Question number 2. We'll start with Dan. Do you support a November ballot initiative to give San Diegans a choice for their electricity provider?
Absolutely, yes. Thank you.
Jane?
Can you repeat the question, please?
Sure. Do you support a November initiative to give San Diegans a choice for their electricity provider?
Yes, absolutely. Like, I don't like the fact that SDG&E wants to look at people's income to determine how much they're going to charge a person. I mean, it's just not their business to have to know everybody's income. I think that SDG&E has to be fair, and if they won't be, I think that the city has to look elsewhere.
Larry?
Definitely in favor of it going on the ballot. I want everyone to have a chance to research it. We got plenty of time between now and November, so if you're not really sure about it, you know, plenty of time for us to look into it. I've talked to some of the folks that are in favor of it. There's still a few questions that I have that we're going to look into, but plenty of time. I want to see it get on the ballot in November. You know, getting back to what Genevieve said, the highest cost of living in San Diego. It's ridiculous. I mean, we're the best city in the world, and but we've got so much more to do to grow here, and you know, being burdened with these bills for our power. We got to find another way around this. You know, I'm all about looking for, you know, clean energy and different changes with that, but right now we got to do something different than this track we're on with SDG&E.
Genevieve?
Absolutely. We have a wonderful opportunity to lower rates as high as 65% lower rates by firing SDG&E. SDG&E takes $1 billion in profits away from our communities. If we owned the utility and the assets, we would be able to keep the money to put back into our system and into our communities right here. 1 out of every 4 San Diegans cannot afford to pay their gas and electric bill. This is an opportunity for us to turn that around. So absolutely, I'm looking forward to seeing that on the ballot in November.
Thank you. Jane, do you think the city should continue to fund bike lanes, and are they helping fight climate change?
Well, as far as bike lanes, they're not doing the greatest job. Like where I live in Mira Mesa, there's a bike lane and a car lane. It's one, where the bicyclists share the lane with the drivers, and that I do not see people riding a bicycle in those. I don't see people riding their bicycles in that lane. I think it doesn't make sense. Where I grew up in Solana Beach, they have better bike lanes. And also, can you repeat the rest of the question, please?
Do you think the city should continue to fund bike lanes, and are they helping fight climate change?
I don't know if it's helping to fight climate change. I do know that the wars that we've had are not good for the climate. At the beginning of World War II, we had a tropical storm, and we had not had another one until last year, when Russia and Ukraine were fighting each other. I think we need to bring peace, world peace, to have climate change for the better.
Larry, what do you think about the bike lanes and climate change?
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the bike lanes. Of course, I like biking safely, but these plans did not take the community's input. I know, I asked about one in particular where I have seen numerous vehicle versus pedestrian or versus bicyclist accidents. I saw that it was designed poorly and asked about who did the designing, and never got a good answer on that. It's a good idea that the people think, build it and they will come, but I'm telling you, nobody is using the bike lanes. Would I like to see everybody riding the bikes more? Yeah, of course. I'd like to see people using the trolley more too, to help the environment. 3% of people are using the trolley. It's unsafe, it's not clean. We got a lot of things we can do that'll help the environment better than the bike lanes. I would tell you that they probably hurt the environment. I mean, I just don't see people riding bikes on them as much as they would have in days past. Many bicyclists have told me that they don't feel safe riding in those bike lanes. They are not designed well. So this is just indicative of the kind of leadership we have right now in the city, with not talking to the community and making poor decisions.
Genevieve?
I'll answer the questions in reverse. I think that there is potential for bike lanes to adequately address climate change. However, we have to be planning bike lanes deliberatively. They need to be intentional. They need to make sense where they're placed. Anytime we can get people out of cars, of course that's better for the climate because we are not producing the emissions. So in theory, absolutely yes. When the city of San Diego decided to put in bike lanes, they did not talk with community members. Those of us who would like to use bike lanes find them dangerous. So what I will say in my last 15 seconds is that if the city wants to continue to put in bike lanes, it has to make sense. We also need data. We cannot measure what we do not understand or know. We need measurable outcomes, and this is how we would get to the answer about the actual effect that it is having and the impact on climate change and climate action work.
Thank you. Next question, also having to do with climate.
No,
Larry.
I didn't have time to answer.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
We are the campaign of the million-mile man. Bike San Diego sent me a questionnaire yesterday. And I told them, I said, I'm going to tell you the truth. I've ridden the bike farther and longer than anybody in this room, probably everybody combined in this room a million miles. And I told Bike San Diego that when we get in, we will remove 70% of the bike lanes in San Diego that do nothing. And the other 30% we will protect. We will look at safety issues and protect them in corridors where people ride a bike. Now, this is coming from the million-mile man. The bike lanes do nothing for climate change, absolutely nothing. It's a red herring, it's a diversion, it's phony baloney. Don't believe it. It's coming from the million-mile man. I'm telling you, it's the truth. Thank you.
Larry, this also has to do with climate. How can the city reach its climate action goal with its huge deficit and its ineffective public transit system?
Yeah. I think that we bit off a little bit more than we can chew with the goal. I want to have, I love the environment. I think we all like our planet, right? So I want to leave the environment better for my kids, the next generations, just like we all do. We want to make the city safer and all as well. But we do got to understand the way the economy works here in San Diego, and we got to have more realistic goals with our transition to green energy. I mentioned earlier about the trolley. I would love to see more people using the trolley, and it is just a shame right now that nobody does. You know, we have just these other ideas about, we mentioned the bike lanes. These are things that just do not contribute to our plan to get there. And just to be realistic, we live in California, okay? We drive to the beach. We take our kids to practices. We go up to the hills to go camping. These are things that we're going to need our cars for. All right. We need to have some good plans with that. I like the idea of transitioning to more electric vehicles. I like the idea of folks when they are in the city using the mass transit. And of course, I am also very much in favor of us switching to green energy.
Thank you. Genevieve?
If we fire SDG&E, we can actually have solar requirements and meet them. That's one thing. And that doesn't cost us a penny. Really taking our climate action plan seriously doesn't really cost us a penny. Right now we have a climate action plan that our city is not adhering to. And this is something that the city is required to adhere to and comply with. And we just don't have the will to do it. We have city departments that are not complying with the climate action plan. And how do we set an example as the city for residents of San Diego if we are not doing what our own plan tells us to do? It does not take money to adhere to a climate action plan and go green, to use solar where we can on new homes. We absolutely need robust public transportation. We are not a city that is easy to get around by use of trolley or bus, and we can change that.
Thank you. Dan?
Would you mind repeating the question?
Sure. How can the city reach its climate action goals with its huge deficit and its ineffective public transit system?
As far as we are concerned, it cannot, simply because it's unrealistic. Number one, the question answered the question itself. The whole thing is a fraud. It's a red herring. Again, it's a diversion, what they're trying to do. Transportation in the city, Sandag, they're in charge of the transportation for the most part. They are a corrupt organization. They are absolutely corrupt. And the whole thing about transportation, how many of you took the trolley or the bus here? Can you raise your hand? How many? One. One person in the whole room. Okay, well that answers your question. Thank you.
Jane, how was the trolley ride?
Well, actually, I didn't take the trolley today. I just took buses. And I have a Pronto card. Okay, so I think it's really, thanks. I think it's really great that people 18 and younger can have a free Pronto card and go on public transportation. Like the buses and the trolleys. I think it's great that they can do that, especially if they go to summer school or a different school of their choice. I think that's very important. They need choices. I'm concerned about the purple line that they're proposing that could go through Kearney Mesa and possibly University City and Serrano Mesa. If you were to ever go on a trolley, you would see that people can get on the trolley without even paying. And it's rare that someone is on that trolley to make sure that people paid. I do like trolleys, and they are fast and effective, but it needs to be safer. As far as bicycling, I think bicycling is great, but I really felt bad for President Joe Biden, and I realized why I should not be riding a bike. Because that could so much be me. It's like, now what, doctor? The poor guy. He's trying. Yeah, he is really trying. I care a lot about the climate. I care about. I care about having more lanes. Thanks.
Thank you. I'm going to put these two questions together about the police department. Thank you. What more can be done to create trust between the San Diego Police Department and the communities they serve? And what is your view of the Commission on Police Practices and the city's advisory board on police community relations? Larry, you wanted to take that first?
Yeah, sure. So, yeah, we need to have a reset button with the community, with the police department. We have a really good police department here, but like with any organization in our city, they can all be improved upon. I came from other organizations that I had led, and so when I came into the police department a little bit older in life, I was able to see it a little bit differently than maybe a person who started working as a police officer a little bit younger. I see a lot of reforms that we can do with the police department. There's some things we can do with the community. I'm a community relations officer. I deal with the community all the time. I go out and am involved in some of the events. We have a police officer here who's a community relations officer who's here with the community, being involved, answering questions. But there definitely is, in some of the more disadvantaged neighborhoods, there is a lack of trust with the police, and I think the police department would admit to that. And the thing is, it really doesn't matter, who's right or who's wrong in it. We got to get out there and we got to fix that relationship. And there's some plans I have to really work on that. Everything from surveillance systems that the mayor has approved to the number of officers we're going to have, and also with the types of crimes that we're going to enforce.
Thank you, Genevieve.
I was one of the earliest supporters of Measure B, which established the Independent Commission on Police Practices, before it became a popular thing for elected officials to do, or before the police department was neutralized. Because I know that we have impacted communities that we have data showing over and over, study after study, have been treated very differently and poorly by our San Diego Police Department. If we want to build trust between our law enforcement community and community members, the city must listen to impacted people. It is not about the city forking over money, which we've done many times, to get a study to tell us what we already know, that people are treated differently based on their perceived sexual orientation, their race, or whether they have a perceived disability. We need the city to take action. We don't need any more excuses. We have the data, we have the studies. Now it is time for us to implement the policies that will correct it so that every San Diegan is treated the same.
Thank you. Dan?
This issue has been around for 170 years in San Diego. And we keep on rehashing the same old thing over and over and over again like a broken record. Now, having said that, I support, without reservation, San Diego Police Department. Because when you need help, you're not going to call your plumber. You're going to call someone that can help you, unless you have a leak in your house. Now, it's time to stop talking about this issue that has been around forever and start moving forward and start holding people accountable. The mayor needs to hold the police chief and the police department accountable. Thank you.
Jane?
I really value the San Diego Police Department. I want to be there for them. I think it's important to build ties with the San Diego Police Department and youth. I like that the military comes to the high school that I work at, and they build relations with the students, and we have an AFJ ROTC program. I'd like to see the San Diego Police Department bring people onto campuses of the high school so that they can build relations with the students. And I think it would be nice if they had get-togethers, like going to Padre games together. And then the Padres could give a shout out to the San Diego Police and the youth who are there at the game, so people can see how cool it is to be having relations with the San Diego Police Department.
Thank you. Genevieve? This has to do with infrastructure. The recent historic rainstorms caused flooding that disproportionately impacted low-income and underserved communities. If you were elected mayor, how would you prioritize the resources?
Talk about creating pathways for all of San Diegans to thrive. And the second pathway that I talk about creating is a pathway to whole and vibrant communities. San Diego has historically, systematically neglected communities south of the 8 freeway. The 8 divide is a very real thing in San Diego. The only answer that anyone should be telling you as mayor regarding this is that we have to care about every single community that makes up our San Diego community. That we invest in every single community, because when we don't, we see the devastation that we saw 3 weeks ago, and all of us are on the hook for it. It doesn't matter if you live north of the 8 or south of the 8. The liability, the cost to us is going to be a cost to all of us. There is a cost when we do not prioritize equity and invest in all communities the same way.
Thank you. Dan?
Once we balance the budget without borrowing, the willpower will be there in our administration to redo the pump stations in these older neighborhoods and redo the infrastructure. Right now, the city has over $4 billion deficit. Neglect, lack of vision, all of the above. Thank you.
Jane?
We definitely need to do something regarding getting the water not to flood in neighborhoods like where I live in Mira Mesa. I actually had to take my shoes and socks off to walk through water that was like 6 inches deep so I could walk across the crosswalk to go to work at the high school. I think that we definitely need to take better care so that people don't have to walk through water to get to school or get to work. There have been problems in Mira Mesa for a long time as far as water not draining well, and I like it when Chris Kate was a city council member and they fixed things up around the park to make it better so that people were less likely to have to go through water to get somewhere. I think that this should be citywide, where we care about all parts of the city and deal with flooding better. Thanks.
Thank you. Dan, given that the city has a shortfall, I'm sorry, go ahead. Yes, go ahead.
All right, so great answers by everybody, and the point that, working again? All right. The point that Genevieve brought up was great. You know, we're all going to pay for it anyway. We're paying more for it now with the lawsuits. You know, this is just one of the basic things of running a city government. This is just city management 101 is infrastructure and safety. You know, our infrastructure has been suffering for far too long, and we have been complaining about this for years. And I've gone in some of the neighborhoods with some of the neighborhood leaders and got to see this firsthand throughout the city. And we talk about some of the disadvantaged neighborhoods. The difference between the infrastructure, forget about, you know, the stormwater issue, just the streets, the sidewalks, the businesses in the areas. there is such a huge difference, like you said, south of the 8, but also with the city's attention to it. Just, I think it was a week and a half ago, the study came out in the paper about it listed all the districts, all the council districts with roads, for example, and District 4 was the worst, and guess who was going to have the least amount of money spent on it was District 4. So we haven't even learned the lesson after the flood. This is something we got to really go out and go into those disadvantaged neighborhoods first and get them back up to speed before we do it evenly across the board.
Thank you. This is also on infrastructure, since you just have all commented on it. The second part of that question is, how are you going to prioritize the projects for funding? Oh, I'm sorry. Genevieve?
So, you're going to hear me talk about waste and corruption and mismanagement of taxpayer funds a lot. One thing that has been brought to light recently was that money was diverted from our road improvements, which we all know is very much needed, but also from our storm drain systems in order to overpay for the purchase of 101 Ash Street. This is problematic. The city paid over $19 million over the appraisal for a building, and instead of using funds that were going to be for infrastructure needs, we diverted it to this wasteful building. We were never able to put one city worker in because it is asbestos ridden and all of the other things we found out about the building. My answer to this simply is, we must stop wasting taxpayer money, use the monies that are already earmarked for what they are for, listen to the IBA and our auditors, and put money into the needs that we have.
Thank you. Dan, would you prioritize these projects for infrastructure funding?
Well, I believe as Genevieve believes, there's so much waste, including the failed skydiving facility and paying $250,000 a year to some lady that was in charge of the homeless, and she ended up leaving or quitting in disgrace. There's so much waste, so much fraud, so much corruption. It's incalculable what is going on, ladies and gentlemen, in this city. It's just totally unconscionable, totally beyond the pale to think how much money is being wasted. And when we get in, when our administration gets in, we are going to send a shockwave throughout America. It will make national news, an independent, a registered independent, holding these people, their feet to the fire, and they are squirming, and we know it. Thank you.
Jane?
We definitely need to be fixing our storm drain systems throughout the city. And I think it's a shame about the 101 Ash Street. What a mistake, what a waste of money. And the asbestos, not good. We must stop wasting taxpayer money. I like what you said, Genevieve. You're so spot on. Yeah, we can't waste money. I know when I volunteered on my board, it was a lot of work, and we saw areas where we should not be spending money, and we changed direction, spent money on other things instead. There has to be good planning, and one has to plan it with other people who work for the city and who are elected officials. Thank you.
Thank you. Larry?
We only have a minute, and we could all stay up here without any notes and probably talk for hours about all of the failed plans from the last 3 years. That wouldn't be very hard to do it all. But the way that I would go about prioritizing our spending on this, with the money I'm sure we will find because of the wasteful spending we can have figured out with an audit, is on the disproportionate amount of problems in the infrastructure in those disadvantaged neighborhoods first. So I have been in some of the more affluent neighborhoods, and I will hear about their roads being repaired every couple of years, even if it's not needed. and drive down in the Diamond District and see, everybody's going to need new suspension and new tires every so often with how bad it is there. So we do have to go and show some equity into those neighborhoods. And, the mayor's equity director, I just don't see what's happening if they're talking about infrastructure. But under my administration, we're going to go fix those areas first.
Thank you. This could be a simple yes or no question, also having to do with the infrastructure. Since you all seem to agree that the budget is a bit of a mess, the question is, will you support a tax to fund infrastructure repairs and new construction? Dan?
No.
Jane?
No.
Larry?
No, and only because, again, we don't know where that waste is happening yet. I honestly believe we're not going to need one. But if it turned out we did, I'm doubtful that we will. Then we'll talk about that after this administration has a chance to go through the books and see where that need is. But right now, no new taxes.
Genevieve?
No.
Again, on zoning, what is your position, Jane, I'll start with you. What is your position on the increasing density and fire risk in canyon ring communities?
I think although we love trees, we need to cut down some trees so that there won't be a fire hazard. We really need to care more about our neighborhoods. I walked through University City and talked to a lot of people there, and I just thought, wow, their neighborhood is awesome. And what's interesting is they don't have a trolley going through there. It's just a couple of buses, and it's very nice. I think it'd be nice to have all of the city of San Diego look like University City. And La Jolla, I love La Jolla.
Larry, fire risk.
Yeah. So I've been down in the canyons, and I've talked to the community members who are paying exorbitant amounts for their fire insurance. And the city and the county just aren't doing their job of going out and maintaining those areas, like what Jane had said. The same way with the stormwater, where we saw that those areas were supposed to be looked at once a year, and they were being looked at once every 50 years. The canyons are so far behind on their inspections and the clearing that's happening. And I would tell you that the other issue that you tack on with that is going to be with the homeless encampments that are down in those canyons. And I go down there and talk to them all the time, and of course they're going to want to stay warm, they're going to want to start a fire, they're going to cook some food, but it's just a tinderbox waiting to happen. And you can tie this into the cost of living, the fact that you're all having to pay higher rates for that fire insurance too. This is something that's easily fixed. We just got to put our money where our mouth is on this. This is another catastrophe that could happen any day.
Genevieve?
I was out speaking with community members just this weekend, and an apartment complex that caters to residents who are disabled gave me their complaints about the canyon that was right next to their apartment. And they told me they were very fearful because one couple, the husband has one leg and the wife is also disabled. And she said, what happens when we have a fire due to all of this brush that we keep calling about, but that is not being cleared? This is a very real concern. In my neighborhood where I live off of the canyon. I see houses all along the canyon that would be completely devastated and destroyed, but I never see the city coming out to clear the brush. This is also coupled with another problem we have in the city of San Diego, where our fire response times are also delayed. So this is just a big crisis that's waiting to happen, and we don't need another one in the city of San Diego, so we need to be proactive.
Thank you. Dan?
I'm old enough to remember the Julian Fire, 1971, here in San Diego. Now, it is a reckless public policy to allow developers to develop in fire zones. It's completely reckless. It's not right. Many insurance companies will not even insure a property if they're built on in a fire area like that. But Our government, our local municipality is controlled by special interests and developers who get exactly what they want. But this time, it's a little bit different. Thank you.
Thank you. Short-term rentals. Larry, I'll start with you. Do you think the city should place more restrictions on short-term rentals and Airbnbs?
Yes, definitely. I think that it raises the cost of housing in the area. We obviously have a affordable housing crisis in the city, so there's just one measure that we could take to help fight that. Additionally, some of the other measures that we'd put in place is making sure they pay the appropriate fees that they do, that the hotels have to do, that pay into our city to make up for the infrastructure and everything else that they take advantage of. I mean, it's a great investment to have a home and do that, but we definitely do have to have some restrictions on it. I've seen some areas where a single individual owns a great number of those properties in that area. So it's not just a mom and pop with that investment property and trying to make some money off of it. So whether that's a limitation on how many people or how many homes that a person could use in that endeavor, or how many are in a certain neighborhood, but definitely going to see some changes to that.
Thank you. Genevieve?
We must reevaluate our short-term rental policies. And I understand that the city very recently looked at policies and implemented new policies, but we have to look at the outcome and the impacts of the policies and if they actually get us to where we need to go. When we look at the number of short-term rental homes, especially in the Mission Beach area, we see that there are many, many homes in our city that are left vacant most of the year. We are experiencing a housing shortage, which has led to a housing crisis. And if we can actually get a handle on the amount of properties that are not being used to their fullest capabilities, meaning housing San Diegans, we can actually put a dent in the housing shortage. So I believe we need to reevaluate even the newer, more recent policies because they are probably not as effective as first believed to be.
Thank you. Dan?
Yes, there ought to be more regulations. I've spent 48 years in real estate. I know every community in this city intimately. And we ought not let out-of-town ownership into residential neighborhoods where they are running hotels. It's wrong. It's completely wrong. So the public policy needs to change. And we have the motivation and the willpower to change it.
Jane?
Well, it's very important to respect homeowners and renters. And if short-term rentals are taken away from the neighborhood, we have to see what we can do, because I really want to focus on pleasing the homeowners, renters, and mom and pop apartment owners the most. And I know how important it is for people to make money, and it's nice when people can stay at a place for a short term, but we need to make sure that a neighborhood is being respected.
Thank you. Genevieve? Do you support the state law, SB 10, that limits ADU development to no more than one ADU and one junior ADU instead of unlimited units that are now allowed in San Diego?
Are you saying that SB 10 is the one that gives the requirements for one ADU and one junior ADU?
I believe it's unlimited.
Right.
SB
So can I
10
hear
is
the
unlimited.
question again? Because
Sure.
there's not
The
something.
question might be stated a little bit confusingly. Do you support a state law, they don't mention which state law, that limits ADU development to no more than one and one junior ADU instead of unlimited units now allowed in San Diego?
Yes. And I think that where San Diego has gone is a little too far off the rails, if you will. I believe that we can overcorrect sometimes, and with this particular effort that San Diego has engaged in with complying with the state law, they've actually maximized and raised the threshold, which threatens even the very basic fabric of communities. There's a reason why you should not be able to turn a single family zoned residence into a multifamily dwelling place. And the work that I do every single day is work that brings impacted people to the table. I believe that community members must have a say, and the way that the city actually rolled out their new policies as it relates to trying to comply with the state of California was almost deceptive, where the public information was not really honest and transparent. And so I think we need a redo so we can have real facts given to the public so the public can really weigh in.
Thank you. Dan?
Our campaign does not support SB 9 or SB 10. Residential neighborhoods will remain residential. And R1 5000 will be R1 5000. And quite frankly, we have an obligation to this city. We have an obligation not only to the city, but to the greatest generation who built this city. For all of us, everyone in the room here. My administration will fight any encroachment on residential neighborhoods. Thank you.
Jane?
Repeat the question, please.
Do you support any state law that limits ADU development to no more than one ADU or junior ADU instead of unlimited units, which are now allowed in San Diego?
My answer is yes. And I want to say that I oppose SB 10, and residential neighborhoods need to be respected. I'm really concerned about. There was a lot of concern about strip malls being taken out, and that an elementary school being taken out. We have to protect residential neighborhoods.
Larry?
I'm against SB 10. Is this working? There we go. I'm against SB 10, and I see in our neighborhoods the prices of the properties being increased to about 125% because of these corporations coming in and being able to take these houses and turn a big profit by making a big, ugly, apartment complex in that space. It was a beautiful single-family neighborhood. This is something that we got to change. I had a great opportunity to drive through the neighborhood with some people that are in the audience tonight, and they got to show me some of these horrendous buildings and structures that are out there that just totally break away from the neighborhood, as well as the fact that when they build them 740 square feet or below, they don't have to pay their infrastructure fees. So now you have 30 or more people living in your neighborhood, no parking, of course, and the electric grid, the plumbing, all of that is not up to speed to support that many people in the neighborhood. So we got to get rid of this, and I'm all about the planning groups in the neighborhoods, and in talking to them, they usually have the better ideas on where we could build more housing, and this isn't it.
Thank you. Dan, do you support city-built, owned, and public housing?
Would you mind repeating this?
Do you support city-built and owned public housing?
Well, where's the money going to come from? That's my question. If you can show me the money, I'll support it. No, I don't, because, look, folks, come on. The money's got to come from somewhere. We can't keep on raising taxes. We can't go down this road. We've got to balance the budget first. Then we can talk about these public housing. Thank you.
Jane?
What was the word before public?
City built and owned public housing.
No, I don't support it. We need to balance the budget. And I know that a building was supposed to be turned into housing. It was supposed to be turned into housing, and not every unit, not every condo or apartment was going to get a parking space. It doesn't make sense. I'm glad that I have a parking space, and I just think the city wants to get us off the road to stop driving, and I think that the city just needs to think more before they spend money on building public housing.
Thank you. Larry?
Yeah, I'm not in favor of that. And I would tell you that I think we have a lot of financial incentives that we can do with the private sector, with some of the areas where they could build, and we can make it really enticing for them to do things that are affordable in that measure. I would also like to say that our vacancy on the commercial real estate, there's a huge opportunity there to convert some of that. I've worked with some people who, some different developers who specialize in converting some of the commercial real estate into livable spaces and that sort of thing. I think right now we've got, in the downtown area anyway, it's 25 to 30% of vacancy in the commercial real estate, and there's nothing really in the works right now under this administration to change that. It's really bringing businesses in from elsewhere. They're all fleeing. So we're going to have more of that commercial real estate available. We could go in and look at modifying some of that to help assist in this. I would also say that we've got Horton Plaza being built, and right now it's the grand opening for that is not in the near future, only because we don't have the renters for those spaces yet. I think when that opens, the estimate was going to be it's more like 35 or 40% of vacancy in those commercial buildings. Thanks.
Thank you. Genevieve?
I do. I support city-owned public housing, and I'll tell you why. The city must do a better job of leveraging our public land. We are selling away our property, and we could use it for what we need it for. We can keep our land and build housing that is affordable. We can build housing on top of city-owned property like libraries. We have an opportunity by leveraging the land and the buildings that we own to actually provide housing for the people who need it the most. It could be low income, it could be medium income, it can be workforce housing. Most of our police officers don't live in the city of San Diego because they cannot afford it. Our firefighters, our nurses, our teachers, they have a hard time living in San Diego. Why can't we build housing for our first responders so that they who give a benefit can afford to live in San Diego?
Thank you. We only have time for 2 questions left, and I've got a lot of good questions here, so it's hard to choose. But we haven't touched on this. What is the plan for housing the thousands of migrants coming into San Diego now that the processing center is closing? And let's see, we started with Dan last time. Jane? What is the plan for housing the thousands of migrants coming into San Diego now that the processing center is closing?
I think we can't forget the ones who live here, homeowners and renters. We cannot forget them. I mean, like in New York, they were talking about closing a high school during the bad weather so that the migrants could be there, and the students couldn't be there. The fact that students could not be there does not make sense because it's their school. We have to care about migrants, but we can't sacrifice good education for our youth. We need to take care of migrants, and I do like that the school district gives free breakfast and free lunch in the San Diego Unified to students. I think they should give free breakfast and free lunch to the migrants, especially since sometimes they sell day-old food that was from the previous day. I think that it's best to support them, but not put our youth far away from where they want to be at school.
Thank you. Larry?
Just when you thought the politicians would they had created enough crises. We have this one. Okay, so it goes back to the fact that I am not a politician. I think we need to have normal people in helping make the decisions on the common sense things that I think most of the people in here agree on. And this problem is facing us directly. I mean, we are right here. We're our binational city with TJ. I have friends that live on the other side, but this is not necessarily the folks that live on the other side that are coming across. I've gone down to the border, and tomorrow we're going out into some of the border crossing areas to look at it a little closer. This is something that we're going to have to support as a humanitarian issue. We're San Diegans. We're not just going to let these people suffer on the streets, and we're going to have to cover it. But that doesn't mean we got to do so quietly. As an independent, I'm going to call it out. I'm going to call it the governor. I'm going to call out the federal agencies, the president. I don't care what party they're in. We got to call them out. We're going to sue them for the money that we're spending on this. But we do got to help these people. And it's sad that we're letting them come across without even meeting them with any kind of resources at all right now.
Genevieve?
Why does it, oh, wait, not working.
Genevieve first.
We have to deal with people as people. We have to treat people with the human dignity that they deserve. I do not believe in a scarcity mindset. We are a border city. This is going to be an issue that remains with us. It's going to take a collaborative approach. This is going to be the responsibility of every single part of our region, and we have to really get into partnership with the other agencies. The city and the county can do much better about communicating and coordinating. That is what it is going to take. And we also have to take it to higher levels. But we cannot afford to have a scarcity mindset where we are not inviting or welcoming and saying that we're just gonna leave you to die on the streets, because that is not who we are and that is not who we should be.
Thank you. Dan?
The mayor needs to make a public statement on illegal immigration, number one. Number two, everyone in this room has compassion for another human being. We all know that. We're aware of it. Now, those migrants that were displaced by the closing of the shelter by the airport, they ought to be transferred to Midway Drive, to the Motel 6 and other buildings that the city owns, where the flood victims are now going back home or going to a family or going somewhere else. So we're just going to move the pieces around on a puzzle until we solve the border crisis. Now, my grandparents came through Ellis Island. My mother came through Ellis Island. They did it the legal way. We can't have an open border like we have, where people just walk in willy-nilly and take over. That's not right.
Thank you, Dan. Time's up. Last question before the closing statements. I've gotten this card 3 times, so I guess I have to ask it. What is your reaction to Mayor Gloria's decision not to attend tonight's forum? Who wants to take that first? I'll let you decide. Jane, you want to take it first?
Sure. Todd Gloria leaves me in a puzzle. I don't understand why he hasn't been into any forums. Gosh, he could have met all of us. I am shocked that there were mailers from people who I think, didn't want me to be accepted too well. There were 2 mailers sent out about me that I had nothing to do with. I am the only Republican running for mayor, but I didn't send out the mailer saying that I'm the only Republican. I don't know if Todd had anything to do with it, but oh my gosh, I took such criticism. I read social media and was like, this is not right. Anyway, Todd Gloria, I wish he was here. I mean, I did meet him about 4 years ago, and it was nice to meet him at the Mira Mesa Community Park. I wish he had been here, because I think you all deserve to be listening to what he has to say.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Larry?
I mentioned earlier, I was a Marine for 23 years. I've been a cop here now for 8 years, and I've been in combat zones. I've had been shot at. I've had explosions all around. I've had to save lives with my hands. That's some hard work. Being here and having a chance to speak with good people of San Diego, this is fun. This is easy. So when people ask me all the time, gosh, this has got to be super hard running for mayor, and how are you doing it? It's not. It isn't. It takes a lot of money, That's the hard part, I guess. But just getting a chance to listen to you all and communicate my ideas and dreams for the future of San Diego, that's easy. So an elected official just not showing up to these things, regardless if he thinks he's winning in the polls or not, he owes you as the folks. He's your mayor. He's our mayor. I had hoped better things for him when he won. I really thought that things were going to be better than they are now, and sadly they're not. So it's sad that he's not here, and I hope that he attends the next one.
Thank you. Genevieve?
I don't think it's sad that he's not here. I think it's telling. And when a person is asking you for their vote, they need you, and they won't show up for you when they need you, which tells me they will not show up for you when you need them, which was exemplified by the flooding we saw 3 weeks ago when it was all about photo ops. Now, this mayor has sent his communication staff to say that he's not attending any forums because he's doing the business of the city. Well, I went and I dropped in on an event the mayor was at this past Tuesday, and it was a mixer at the Hillcrest Business Association. And I'll tell you why that's important. It's important because he had a stage and a microphone, and there were no criticisms, there were no challenges, there were no questions from his constituents. That's what he will show up for. We need a leader who can stand the test of fire. That's what a real leader does. A real leader tells you when they've made a mistake and they will do better. A real leader can look at you in your face and listen to you about the most pressing issues and say, I hear you. He's not here to do that.
Thank you.
Fire him.
Thank you. Hold on. Thank you, Dan.
I'll tell you why Todd Gloria is not here. It is written in antiquity that a man's intelligence comes from the mother and the character from the father. Todd Gloria has neither. That's why he is not here. Now, he knows, Todd Gloria knows that he will lose the election in November no matter who he runs against. He knows that. So keep that in mind. I was elected with Todd Gloria in 2008 to the Democratic Party, and I saw Todd Gloria in action. And it would scare you to death, his behavior. And I quit the Democratic Party after 50 years.
Thank you, Dan. Time's up.
Thank you.
Before we do our closing statements, we'll do it in reverse order of the beginning statement. I want to point out our League of Voters, vote411.org. It's a great website. You should check it out. It's got all kinds of information. It's a valuable tool. And you can also take a bookmark on the way out that'll tell you about that. Okay, for closing statements, we'll go in reverse order. We'll start with Jane. Come down this way.
Thanks. Talking about the $1 Million Man, I got to let you know about me, too. I competed in the Pepsi-Cola NBA hot shot competition. I got runner-up twice. And the first season, I got to represent the NBA Clippers in Phoenix, Arizona. And I played college volleyball and college tennis at Miracosta College. And I coached the girls' JV tennis team at La Jolla High School. I have a lot of respect for you. Great athlete. I want to thank the League of Women Voters and the neighbors for a better San Diego. And I also appreciate that I met Joan Kroc a long time ago at a McDonald's, and I just thought she was the greatest. To see that this is named after Ray and Joan is awesome. I want to say it has been a pleasure tonight. Thank you very much. You're awesome, and God bless.
Thank you. Dan, your closing statement?
I want to thank everyone, especially the League of Women Voters and the neighborhood group, all of you for being here tonight, and we encourage you to make a educated decision on who you're voting for. Look at everyone's background, look at their website, look at their character, look at everything, and be sure you vote accordingly. Now, as for Joan Kroc, I remember visiting her at her home in Rancho Santa Fe. Many, many years ago, she had a big monument to John Paul the Great. And I'm Polish and proud of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Genevieve?
I really want to just thank everyone for being here tonight. I want to thank you for taking time out of your evening to hear from us, because this is really important. This is a question about our values as a city. This is a question about who we will vote for to lead our city. A city that is the second largest city in our state and the 8th largest city in our nation. A city that is the most expensive city in the entire country. I'm a nonprofit executive. I work to hold the government accountable every single day. That is the work that I do. So when I talk about pathways to trust and accountability, know that I have already started to pave that pathway. I've influenced city policies, both inside and outside of city structure, as a commissioner on the gang prevention and intervention. And I've also, as a public interest attorney, written ordinances that were passed unanimously on the surveillance technology when we had no oversight, when the city had no idea how much surveillance technology they had in their inventory. This was me, just as a normal, regular, everyday San Diegan, saying, why would we not have oversight, accountability, and transparency as it relates to surveillance technology that is deployed in our city? I am the everyday San Diegan who is pledging to bring the voice of the everyday San Diegan to City Hall. For me, this is not about party, politics, or profit. It is about people, and that's what we need in a mayor. I have vision and a plan for the city. I want to speak with all of you because this is our city. I want to know what is important to you. I'm a collaborative leader, and that is how I will lead as the mayor. Thank you so very much.
Larry?
Thank you all for being here again, and for all of you for running for mayor. And also you all for putting this on. I appreciate this and the invite here. This is a great opportunity to talk to you all. I think most of you, like me and the rest of us here, you can just see what's going wrong with our city. You can see the path that it's been going on for far too long. And when you've heard promises, from a politician on the things that he or she was going to deliver, and literally not one of them no promise has been kept. That's just very telling. And the mayor works for you. I think all of us are up here as part of this job interview system for you to hear from us, and we're looking for you to hire one of us. If somebody is working for you and they're not delivering, it doesn't matter how much you like them. It doesn't matter how nice they are or what kind of resume they had. Once they've been in the job for 3 years, and you can see their performance, the lack of performance, it's something where you just got to make that hard decision, and you got to fire them, and we got to move in a different direction. I would just tell you that 4 more years in this direction, we can't take that here. We have so much potential in San Diego. San Diego just needs someone to take charge and unleash that potential. I'm tired of stepping over homeless people every day and seeing people dying on the streets. I'm tired of seeing our disadvantaged neighborhoods suffering as they have. It's just not a safe place, and I think you all know that. Don't let the press fool you whenever you hear them talking about and just promoting the percentages and statistics that the city gives about, that you can't trust your own eyes and your ears and your nose of what you're seeing and smelling out there every day. This needs change, but here's the good part, is there's hope. You've got people that are stepping up to run for mayor here. They can turn it around, and have hope. Know that in November, if you all stick together, and cast your votes. We're going to see some major change. Thanks.
Well, on behalf of the Neighborhoods for a Better San Diego, I'd like to thank them. I'd like to thank all of the volunteers that came tonight from the League of Women Voters. And most of all, I think we should give all the candidates, now is the time, big round of applause. Thank you. Thank you for running. Thank you all for running for office. And thank you for coming to the forum tonight. And again, thank you all for being informed voters. Check out that website, 411, vote411.org. Thanks so much.